It began with a sound, the kind that shouldn't mean anything, but somehow does. Metal against metal. A wrench slipping in the half-light of dawn. A man kneeling beside a rusted Toyota, his breath visible in the cold. To anyone passing through that forgotten stretch of road outside Manchester, he was just another homeless mechanic. Someone fixing a stranger's car for a few coins and a cup of tea. But in less than 10 minutes, he was about to find something that would drag him back into the kind of darkness he thought he'd already survived. His name was Daniel Harker, 46, ex-Royal Engineer. He'd seen more in Hellman than most people read in headlines. Sand, blood, the sound of rotors echoing over desert stone. But nothing he'd seen there prepared him for what he'd find in the trunk of that car. The car sat by the edge of an old petrol station, long closed, its signage stripped, and its windows boarded up. Daniel had made a kind of workshop out of the place. Scavenged tools, a tarp against the wind, a kettle balanced on a camping stove. The night before, he'd watched the rain fall in streaks of sodium light. A storm had passed through, the kind that cleaned the air but left everything else heavier. When dawn came, the road was still wet, the sky that pale gray you only see in northern cities before the buses start running. That was when he noticed the car, a silver Toyota Corolla, late model, parked halfway across the forecourt. Its headlights were off, but the driver's door was slightly open. Steam rose from under the hood. Daniel hesitated. He'd learned long ago that trouble rarely announced itself. It just sat there, waiting for someone kind enough to walk over. He approached anyway. The inside smelled faintly of perfume and damp wool. A handbag on the passenger seat. No one inside. Just a note on the dashboard. Back soon. Please don't tow. He sighed, checked under the bonnet. Simple enough. A bad alternator, maybe a flooded battery. He could fix it in 10 minutes. He always could, as he worked. The only sound was the click of his tools and the low hum of a distant motorway. Then came another sound, a muffled thump from the back of the car. Soft, irregular. He froze. It came again, the kind of sound that makes the air around you feel thinner, like it's holding its breath. He wiped his hands, walked slowly to the trunk, and pressed his palm to the cold metal. The car was still warm. That was when he realized he wasn't alone. Pause. They say fate doesn't come crashing through doors. It whispers. It waits in the places no one looks anymore. Car parks, alleys, forgotten corners of cities. And when it finally calls your name, you don't recognize it until it's too late. So tell me, if you were him, standing there in the cold, hand on that trunk, would you have opened it? Drop your answer in the comments. Because what Daniel found next changed everything. Before the car, before the sound, before the moment that would tear open the past, there was just Daniel. A man most people didn't see anymore. He slept beneath the bypass near Ardwick Green, wrapped in an old army jacket whose name tag had long since faded. He woke with the sunrise and the cold ache that comes from concrete instead of bed. To the city, he was another shadow on the fringe, one of the forgotten, the invisible. But Daniel hadn't always been invisible. Once, he was Corporal Daniel Harker, Royal Engineers, 9th Regiment. He'd built bridges under fire, repaired convoys in the dust storms of Afghanistan, pulled a dozen men out of burning vehicles. He'd been steady, reliable, the man everyone wanted nearby when things went wrong. Until Kandahar, 2009, until the explosion that ended everything he understood about himself. There were 4 of them in the transport that day. He remembered the heat first, then the sound, sharp and final. The road vanished, the sky opened, and in that one instant between impact and silence, Daniel lost 2 men and something else he never got back. The feeling that the world was still safe. When he returned home, there were medals, polite applause, the kind of honors given to the broken so the unbroken could feel proud. Then came the sleepless nights, the panic when engines backfired, the flash of sunlight that looked too much like detonation. And eventually, the job loss, the drinking, the long, slow slide into nowhere. By the time he found himself fixing cars for strangers, Daniel wasn't running from war anymore. He was just running from remembering. He'd made a kind of peace with it, a rhythm to his days. A thermos of instant coffee, a cigarette before dawn, a walk to the shelter when the weather turned. He wasn't bitter. Not really. Just tired. He'd tell people he liked the quiet, that being alone gave him room to think. But the truth was, it gave him room to not think. The week before that morning, Daniel had met the woman who owned the Toyota. He didn't know her name. She'd stopped by the forecourt once to ask if he could look at her engine. Middle-aged, professional, the kind of person who carried her keys with purpose. She'd smiled when she spoke. That rare, polite smile of someone who didn't look through him. That mattered, more than he realized at the time. So when he saw her car again that morning, engine steaming, door ajar, note on the dashboard, he didn't think danger. He thought maybe she'd broken down again. Maybe fate was finally giving him a reason to be useful. Because that's the quiet truth about men like Daniel. They don't stop caring. They just stop expecting to be needed. And so he worked, the old soldier under a gray sky, tightening bolts with fingers that still shook when he dreamed. Until that sound, that faint, rhythmic thump from the trunk. He thought at first it was just the wind, or maybe the loose metal shifting as the engine cooled. But deep down, something older stirred, that old, disciplined awareness that had once kept him alive in darker places. Something was in that trunk, and every instinct told him not to open it. But another part of him, the soldier, the fixer, the man who'd built bridges for others, couldn't just walk away. Because for Daniel Harker, walking away was what had ruined everything the first time. It began like any other small act of kindness. A man alone with a wrench, a stalled engine, and the faint hum of morning traffic. Daniel crouched by the car, the rain slicking his sleeves, pooling in the cracks of the pavement. The Toyota was parked awkwardly against the curb, half in shadow beneath an old streetlight that hadn't switched off yet. Its hazard lights blinked steadily. Orange, heartbeat, orange, heartbeat. The only rhythm left in an otherwise silent street. He wiped the grime from the license plate with his sleeve, trying to make sense of the damp note tucked beneath the windshield wiper. It read only, "Thank you. I trust you. No signature. No explanation." The handwriting was neat, almost deliberate, the kind of handwriting that belonged to someone calm, or someone trying very hard to appear calm. Daniel turned the note over. Blank on the back. No phone number. Just those 4 words. He didn't know what made him reach for the trunk latch. Habit, maybe, or curiosity, or that same need to fix things, even when they weren't broken. The latch resisted for a moment, the old metal stiff with rust. Then, with a dull click, it gave way. The trunk lifted an inch. That was when he heard it again. Thump. Then silence. Daniel froze. Every nerve in his body tightened, the way it had in Kandahar before second blast. He listened. Nothing. Then thump. A slow, muffled rhythm from inside. It wasn't the sound of an object rolling. It was too deliberate, too human. He stepped back. His breath came out visible in the morning air. "Hello," he said quietly, as if the word itself might decide what came next. No reply, just another dull thud from the trunk. He glanced around. The street was empty, just a faint hiss of rain on metal, the city waking somewhere far away. Then the smell hit him. At first faint, like paint thinner, then deeper, sharp, acrid, the unmistakable sting of industrial cleaner. Something inside that car was wrong. Daniel looked at the latch again. He could close it, walk away, pretend he'd never heard anything. People disappeared all the time in cities like this, and men like him knew better than to make noise. But the note, "I trust you," it wasn't just a message. It was a burden. He lifted the trunk fully. Inside was a single black duffel bag, zipped almost all the way shut, except for the small gap where the zipper hadn't been pulled completely across. From that gap, a strand of fabric protruded, white, frayed, and stained dark at the edge. Daniel's hand shook as he reached out. The zipper was cold, stiff with damp. He pulled. The sound, that sharp, metallic shhk, seemed to echo through the empty street. Inside was a blanket, folded, vet. Beneath it, something wrapped in clear plastic. He leaned closer. The smell grew stronger, bleach and something else. Something organic. For a moment, his brain refused to form the image. Then it did. Inside the plastic, pale and motionless, was a human hand. The fingers were curled slightly, as if reaching for something that had never arrived. Daniel staggered back, nearly slipping on the wet pavement. His throat went dry. The edges of the world narrowed. He wanted to close the trunk, to erase what he'd seen, but he couldn't move. Because now, in the silence that followed, he heard something else. Not a sound this time. A voice. Not out loud, not real, but from memory. A woman's voice. Soft. Laughing. His sister, Emily. She'd gone missing 12 years ago. He hadn't said her name in nearly a decade. Not since her case went cold. But now, standing over the open trunk, he could hear her laugh again. The same brittle, fading sound from the back of his mind. He looked down at the duffel. That hand. It looked like hers. He stepped back, heart pounding, mouth dry. Rain pooled at his feet, and the streetlight flickered once, twice before going out completely. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed, and Daniel realized something chilling. Whoever had left that note, whoever had written, "I trust you," hadn't vanished. They'd planned for him to find it. When the police arrived, Daniel was still sitting on the curb, soaked to the bone, staring at the car as if it might start breathing again. Blue lights washed across the wet asphalt, flashing in slow rhythm. Red, blue, painting the hollow street in colors that didn't belong to the morning. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He just lifted his hands when they shouted. Step away from the vehicle. Later, in the back of the patrol car, the condensation from his breath fogged the window. Outside, he watched them swarm the Toyota, gloves, flashlights, evidence bags. The trunk was still open. He saw them lift the black duffel into a body bag, zip it, and carry it away. Detective Sarah Kincaid led the investigation. She was in her early 40s, sharp, methodical, tired of the kind of cases that started in darkness and ended in silence. When she entered the interview room, Daniel was already waiting. His hands were folded neatly on the table, knuckles white from the cold. She slid a cup of coffee toward him. "Tell me what happened." He told her everything. The note, the trunk, the smell, the hand. He didn't leave out the part about Emily, though he didn't say her name. He just said, "I'd seen something like that before." Kincaid listened without interruption, her pen scratching occasionally against paper. When he finished, she leaned back and said, "You touched the bag?" He nodded. "Then you'll understand why we had to take your prints." Daniel said nothing. Kincaid looked at him for a long time, then sighed. "The note, we found it. It's in evidence now. But the thing is, Mr. Heller, it wasn't just left there. It was addressed to you." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" "The handwriting," she said. "It's identical to samples from your sister's missing person case. Letters she wrote before she disappeared." The room tilted. Daniel's breath caught. For a moment, the low hum of the overhead light became unbearable. Sharp, electric. "That's impossible," he whispered. Kincaid didn't respond. She just slid a small evidence bag across the table. Inside was the note. The words were faintly smudged from rain, but still clear. "Thank you. I trust you." Daniel stared at it for a long time. Then he noticed something he hadn't before, a small dot, barely visible, beneath the word trust. A period. Emily always added one, even in casual notes. She said made things final. The detective watched him carefully. "Mr. Heller," she said, voice low, deliberate. "We need to ask, how long have you had that car?" Daniel looked up slowly. His voice cracked when he answered. "I don't. I've never seen it before." Kincaid leaned forward, her tone tightening. "Then tell me," she said, "why was your sister's necklace found in the glove compartment?" Daniel didn't remember leaving the station. 1 minute, Detective Kincaid was asking him to sign a statement. The next, he was standing under the orange glow of a streetlight outside, the night air pressing heavy against his chest. The city moved around him, slow, distant, indifferent. Buses hissed by, tires cutting through puddles. Somewhere a train wailed. He walked, not because he knew where he was going, but because movement kept him from thinking. Yet the words kept replaying anyway. Your sister's necklace. He hadn't seen it since 1998. A small silver pendant shaped like a sparrow, a birthday gift from their father before he left for good. Emily never took it off. She said it was a charm for safe return. But Emily never returned. She'd vanished after leaving a late shift at a cafe in Stockport. No witnesses, no estrago, no suspects. The police called it a likely runaway. Daniel never believed that. He'd spent the next decade searching. Letters, tips, sleepless nights. Eventually, when the guilt got too heavy, he enlisted, trading one kind of search for another. Now, 15 years later, her name was back in his mouth, and her necklace was in a stranger's car, the same car that carried a dead woman in its trunk. He reached the edge of the canal before realizing how far he'd gone. The water reflected the city's sodium lights, fractured gold ripples under the black surface. He crouched by the railing, gripping the cold iron. His hands trembled. He whispered her name once. Just once. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Slow. Careful. Mr. Heller, a voice said. You shouldn't be out here alone. Detective Kincaid's voice, calm, measured. She'd followed him. Daniel turned. You think I killed her? No, she said softly. But I think she was killed for you. The words hung between them like frost. Kincaid handed him a folder. Inside were photographs, grainy, printed in monochrome. The woman from the trunk, pale and lifeless. Another photo of the note. Then, one that made Daniel's throat close. A blurry CCTV still of a woman outside a petrol station 2 weeks earlier. Her face was turned away, but the shape, the hair, it was Emily. Or it could have been. We ran facial recognition, Kincaid said. 94% match. We're verifying dental records. But if it is her, Daniel shook his head. No, that can't be. She would have called. She would have. People change, Kincaid said quietly. Sometimes they come back as someone else. Daniel stared at the photograph again. His pulse thudded in his ears. Something about the woman's hand caught his eye. The faint mark of a healed burn across her wrist. The same scar Emily got when she pulled a pan off the stove too fast, laughing through the pain. It was her. The truth hit not like a memory, but like a blade. The woman in the trunk wasn't a stranger. It was his sister. Daniel's hands shook as he held the photograph, unable to tear his gaze away. The familiar tilt of her head, the curve of her jawline, the tiny scar on her wrist. It was her. All these years, he had imagined her safe, lost, maybe angry at him, maybe not. But now the distance dissolved. She was here, but broken. The victim of a life he had never anticipated. Detective Kincaid watched him silently, allowing him a moment to process the impossible. Then she spoke, her voice steady, almost clinical. We traced the car back to a storage facility in Manchester. It belonged to someone with multiple identities. Cash-only transactions. No official lease. It's how she stayed hidden, or how someone kept her hidden. Daniel swallowed hard. Who would do this? Kincaid's eyes held a quiet intensity. We don't know yet. But whoever it was, they were meticulous. The woman in that trunk wasn't just killed. She was made invisible for years. Invisible. The word echoed in Daniel's mind. Emily had vanished, not just physically, but legally, socially. Every system that should have protected her had failed. He closed his eyes, remembering the last time he saw her. The laughter over spilled tea. The note pinned to her bedroom door, "Don't wait up. I'll be back." Back. She never returned. Until now. Kincaid handed him another folder. Inside were documents, bank records, rental agreements, letters postmarked from cities he'd never visited. The handwriting matched Emily's own. Neat, precise, yet weighted with caution. Somewhere along the way, she had become someone else. But why? The letter from a facility in Glasgow caught Daniel's eye. It was marked confidential, a psychological evaluation that spoke of fear, surveillance, and a constant shadow of an unknown predator. Emily had tried to leave, but every attempt had been tracked, her steps predicted. Someone had been orchestrating her life from the shadows, forcing her to disappear again and again. Daniel's pulse quickened. She wasn't just hiding, she was trapped. Yes, Kincaid replied. But there's more. The person who brought the car here, the one who left it unlocked, deliberately, they wanted you to find her. He looked at her, bewildered. Why me? Why would anyone? Kincaid shook her head. That part we don't know. But the message is clear. She needed you to uncover this. She trusted that only someone who truly cared, someone who would look past the years, past the mistakes, could piece this together. Daniel exhaled, the weight of 12 years pressing down on him. He thought of the nights spent searching, of the letters unanswered, of the dreams where Emily reached out but faded before his eyes. And now, she was real, tangible, but also a ghost of the life that should have been. As he walked back to the car, toward the trunk that had changed everything, he realized the enormity of what he faced. This wasn't a single crime, a singular tragedy. It was a labyrinth of lies, a maze that had twisted Emily's existence into something unrecognizable. And at the center of it was the truth he had always feared. Love could not undo time, but could drive a man to confront horrors he never imagined. Daniel opened the trunk. The faint scent of aged leather and old perfume hit him, the remnants of her brief, stolen life. The woman curled inside, alive, fragile, but alive, looked up at him. Recognition flared in her eyes. "Daniel," she whispered. Tears blurred his vision. 12 years. 12 years of searching, of hoping, of living in the shadow of her absence. And now at last, she was here. But as he helped her out of the trunk, another envelope fell from beneath the seat. A single sheet of paper, typed with an address he didn't recognize, and a warning that chilled him to the bone. Do not trust anyone. They're still watching. For the first time, Daniel understood that finding Emily was only the beginning. The real battle, the unraveling of a truth bigger than both of them, was just beginning. The envelope had fallen at Daniel's feet like a silent warning. He stared at it, heart hammering, knowing instinctively that the message it carried could unravel everything he thought he understood. Emily's hand trembled as she reached for it, glancing at him with a mixture of fear and defiance. I think this explains why they never let me go," she whispered. Daniel opened it carefully. The typewritten note was succinct, cold, and deliberate. "They know you found her. Do not follow the trail alone. The key is at 14 Hanover Street. Midnight. Come alone. 14 Hanover Street." A warehouse district he knew well from his time, scavenging odd jobs. Industrial, abandoned, the kind of place where shadows gathered like smoke and the echo of footsteps could mask a whisper. He recognized the voice behind the message immediately. Someone who had orchestrated Emily's disappearance from the very start. Someone watching, calculating, controlling. Emily's eyes met his. "Daniel, you can't go alone. Please." He shook his head, the weight of years pressing him forward. "I'm the only one who can. They won't respond to anyone else. Not cops, not friends, not even me, if I hadn't found the trunk." Night fell like a shroud over Manchester, a chill mist curling through the streets as he approached Hanover Street. Every shuttered window, every rusted gate, seemed to pulse with anticipation. He clutched the note in his hand, the paper crumpling slightly under his grip. The city around him felt different now. Darker, heavier, as if it held its breath for what was about to unfold. He reached the building. Its corrugated steel doors were streaked with rust, the faint graffiti of previous squatters etched into the surface. The door at number 14 was slightly ajar, a single sliver of dim light spilling onto the wet pavement. Daniel hesitated only for a moment, his hand hovering over the handle. He could hear something faint inside, the slow, deliberate click of metal against metal, like someone testing locks or setting a trap. Inside, the air was thick with dust and oil. Shadows clung to every corner, and the smell of machine grease mixed with something more pungent, the faint tang of decay, of years left hidden. He moved carefully, each footstep measured, aware that a single wrong move could alert someone waiting in the darkness. A figure emerged, tall, silent, their face obscured by the brim of a hat and the shadow of the warehouse lighting. Daniel froze, instinctively placing himself between the figure and the only source of light. "You found her," the figure said, voice low, almost casual. "And now you're here, exactly as I expected." Daniel's heart raced. "Who are you? Why her? Why me?" The figure smiled, a thin, unfeeling curve of lips that sent a shiver down Daniel's spine. "Why her? Because she saw too much." "Why you?" "Because you care enough to act when no one else would. Most would have walked past the trunk and left her there. Not you." The truth began to crystallize in Daniel's mind. Emily's disappearance wasn't random. It was orchestrated. Every missed call, every dead end in the investigation, every fearful glance from strangers she once trusted, it had all been planned. And now, this shadow, this architect of her hidden life, was standing directly in front of him. "You think this is over?" The figure continued, stepping closer. "You have no idea what she has seen, what she knows. And if you're not careful, neither will you." Daniel clenched his fists, adrenaline coursing through him. "I don't care. I'm not letting you control her life any longer. Not now.
Like
Not
and
ever."
subscribe.
The figure's eyes glinted in the dim light. Bold, brave, but bravery can get you killed. As the tension coiled in the warehouse like a living thing, Daniel realized that this confrontation was not just about Emily. It was about every choice, every failure, every silence that had allowed her to disappear. And tonight, he would confront it all or lose everything. A door at the far end creaked open. A second shadow moved into view, tall, deliberate, and unmistakably dangerous. And in that instant, Daniel understood the stakes. Emily's life had been one of secrets, but tonight, the final revelation would demand a choice that could destroy them both. This was Trace Crime Files. Subscribe for more stories where truth is stranger than fiction, and justice is never as simple as it seems.